Good afternoon, everyone. Today I will present you my slide about what's the best way to contribute to the Odoo code base. So we have the slide with the question. Don't hesitate to ask in the pad, like the usual, if you have any question. So this is the outline of my talk. First, I will talk about why would you like to contribute to the Odoo code base. How to do it, how to handle translations, because your code will be run by a lot of people in all over the world. The pull request and the commit message. What are the best practice to have a nice commit? And the testing, Python and JavaScript. And I will finish with my conclusion. So first, why contribute? The first reason is the bug fix. So you may identify some issue in the code, and then you find a way to fix it, and then you decide to make a contribution. Second one is an improvement. If you are not happy with the way the code behave, and you want to add an improvement, a new feature. Sometimes we make quite long methods, and sometimes we forget to add some hook when you can override to change the behavior of the code. So sometimes we have contribution to say, hey, this method is quite big. It would be nice to have a hook here. That way we can change the behavior of that method depending of our internal code. So we have sometimes contribution to add really small methods. It's to reduce the burden of your patches and fork, because you need to focus on your own functionalities. You need to focus on your own business code and not the standard one. That way everybody can profit. It's really important that if you think that you found a security issue, this kind of pull request will follow a separate process. So it's important to read the responsible disclosure policy to know the whole process. That way we avoid to mass leak and things like that. So it's important to, if you identify a security issue, to follow the guidelines related to that process. So here we have a small scenario. You are working with a team on your own business code. You have some override, and everything is running smoothly. But your team find an issue in Odoo community or enterprise, and you can reproduce it on Runbot. That means that the issue is in standard. It's not your own customization that is at fault. You have an internal developer, and he identified the faulty code, and he know how to fix it, to make the change, to have it work. But the issue is that if you keep that change for you, it could break with any update. When you fetch the origin code state, for example, each week to have the last security patches, you rebase, and then the issue is that you could have some conflicts, and it is painful to merge them, and you could have a lot of issues. So the best, if you have some code to fix standard, then it should be merged in standard, because you need to focus on your own functionalities and on your own business code. So how to do it? How to go from that situation to a code that is merged in our code base? First, I encourage you to read the documentation. So it's in the GitHub contributing markdown file, and it will explain all the steps you need in order to have your code merged. You need to know which version is affected. So as for now, we will support version 16 to 18 plus master. So you need to find the oldest version where the issue is can be reproduced. There is also a section on the wiki what those stable means. It explains what change is acceptable in the stable version. To have a short list, it means that we in stable we cannot make improvement, no refactoring, cosmetic changes to improve the variable name, for example. You cannot change the signature even if the method is only used one, because somebody else could have an override in a customization, and if you change the parameter, then his override will be broken and he won't be able to restart the server once he apply your change. You cannot change the SQL schema, so the database. The XML are not reloaded when we perform update of the code. So it is important that this change don't affect the business code. Actually, when we restart Odoo every week after fetching the last changes, we just restart Odoo. We don't apply upgrade. We don't restart it with the -u option. So it's important that when you do your change, you test it without applying the -u, and you don't only test it on new databases. So, for example, let's take a small example. You are using subscription. I am the guru of subscription, so that's an example I will do. And in subscription, we have this small on the sell order page. We have a small field that is recurring detail. It's an HTML field, and it's giving the recurring amount and the non-recurring amount. That's just simple like that. And imagine you would like to improve it and say, for my team, we need the recurring monthly and recurring yearly. Okay, let's do it. You identified that it's a computed field, HTML field, so you just need to update the compute method. It's rendered in the QApp template. So let's do it. You do exactly that. So you update the compute method to add a new value in the dictionary passed to the QApp rendering engine. And you update the template to make sure that it will load the new values. It works. You test on a new database, the runbot is green, everything is perfect. But the issue is that it will crash. If you do it like that, it will crash because the template, the XML template, won't be reloaded. That means that it will still expect the recurring val, but you don't provide it anymore in the Python method. So you will have a key error, it will just crash. So one way to avoid that is to make sure that the recurring val is still provided in the compute method. But we will argue that it's an improvement and not a bug fix, so we will do it for master, where you can do that change. So it's really important to make sure that your code is running on existing database and not only the new one. It's important to handle the translation. So you are running code in your own local, probably that most of you don't speak English at home. So here we have translation guidelines in the official documentation. So don't hesitate to have a look, and you will see how they are handled in Odoo. We have some explicit translation in the code directly, so you provide some string and it will be translated at runtime, depending on the current user, the local you define on some record and things like that. You can do it in Python, JavaScript, but you also have some implicit translation. Everything in the template, the XML files, the field name, the field helpers, and things like that, everything is translated. So you need to make sure that when you do fix in stable, master is not affected, you update the translation. You make sure that it's possible to update the translation in Odoo. Otherwise, the string won't be found and you won't be able to translate it for your users. So once you have made your change, your fix, you just commit it. And then you will make sure that you export the POT file that is responsible to export all the string that can be translated. So you do that exactly with Odoo bin, with the following argument: export language, the POT file, and for this dedicated module in that case, you put it at the right place, and you do git commit -p to only commit the necessary change. So sometimes there are some missing value, but it's important when you do external review that pull request, sorry, that you only commit what is relevant to your change. It will accelerate the review process, and it will make everybody happier. And then you can put that change inside your previous commit. So for example, here we have a change in in sign module where we introduce a new user error at some point, and it's important that this new error is translatable. Don't forget test. So maybe some of you were here for the previous session in Odoo. This was JavaScript test, but there are also Python test, integration test, unit test. So why do you need to add test when you are fixing something? Because fixing or improving is not enough. It's not enough to have a green runbot. It's because runbot is not perfect, and there are a lot of flaws that are not tested properly. So they are essential. The best for your pull request is to have the smallest test possible. So just one case per test to make sure that you can easily understand it, and the reviewer too. And that way, it's better to have 3 separated tests with 3 simple cases than a big one of 500 lines. You have a lot of examples in the code base, so don't hesitate to check. There is probably already a test in the code base that is doing almost what you want, so it's really easy to just take inspiration. Do it your style. So now you have your fix, it's working, you make sure that it's not breaking everything, but you need to follow convention, because the modules are done by a different team, and it's important that you don't change the whole convention. We try to have the smallest diff as possible, so that means that if you find that at some point a variable name is not good, you don't change it in the whole file. You try to keep it as small as possible. It will make the review process faster and easier for everybody. And you need to have things that are easy to understand. So it's important to have self-explanatory variable name. So avoid single letter variable name and things like that. Don't hesitate to add comment, because sometimes the code will be read by a lot of people. We have a team for bug fix, we have R&D, we have sometimes product owner who know how to code. So it's important that the logic, if it's not trivial, is explained in comments. It makes the work of everybody more simple. Because in the end, you won't be the one maintaining that piece of code. So it's important that when you pass the code, it can be handled by anybody. So now I will talk about the pull request and the commits, how to properly follow our guidelines. So it's really important to explain why you are doing that change. Why? Not what will you do, but why you do it. If it's a bug fix, it's important to explain the step to reproduce it. That way we can test it. We can find if other flows are affected or not. And if you have a trashback, it's always better to put the relevant line of the trashback inside the commit message. Sometimes there is several ways of fixing something, and you will have to make a choice. And it's important to explain why you fix it that way and not the other way. Because in a few years later, somebody can have a look at your code and say, oh, it's not covering that case. Why did it choose that method and not the other one? but maybe you investigated the issue and you found that it was not possible to do it in another way, or there are some side effects. So it is really important to explain your conclusion and why you have that piece of code and not another when there are several possibilities. We also have some Git guidelines in the documentation. So here I have a few examples. For example, here I have a signed commit. We improve the CSS and the flows. We have three changes in the elements in the UX. It's really a bad commit message because it's only explaining what we are doing. But if you read the code, you understand what is going on. So it brings no information. It's really a poor commit message. Here, it's an example from the sign application. We had to rebind a method, and this commit message is just explaining what the commit is doing. It's really bad too. It brings no information, no value. Everybody is sad. But this is the actual commit message. So as you can see, we explain what was happening, the context. So here we had to drag and drop from one page to another. So it's not everybody who does that. And at some point we had an issue. And this is the actual commit message. So you see that it's way bigger than the change. But in the end, everybody is happy because we understand why it is necessary and why we are doing it. So yeah, it's way better. You need to keep it professional. Odoo is a company that is here for a long time. We did not follow our own guideline in the past. So sometimes you can find some things like that in the commit history. But please don't follow the new guidelines and not the old one. So you can easily check this kind of commit message if you grab the relevant word, I would say. So, in conclusion, I will say that you need to make sure which version you aim to target, stable versus master. Target the lowest version that we still support today. Don't make it crash. It's really important to avoid that bug fix bring more issue that it resolve. So make sure that everything is working on new database, existing one. With sometimes a combination of module can bring an issue. So make sure that it works in the several conditions. You need to make sure that translation are handled properly, follow convention, test it in the interface, but also with the new tests, and make sure your commit message is up to date. So basically that's it. Thank you for your attention, and if you have any question, you can scan the QR code and I will answer it. Just one final point is that now we activated the code owner functionality in GitHub. So if you make a pull request in some code base, it will be automatically assigned to some reviewers. So for example, in my case, if you change the subscription module of the sign one, our team is automatically assigned and get a notification for that change. So it's not necessary to ping people that you know in Odoo, because automatically there will be some notification that will be sent at some point. Thank you.
Okay, all right. I think we can quickly go through the questions. We'll just give you a few seconds to continue typing your questions, and then we'll go through the ones that we can go through in the time that we have. So I think we can start with the first question. What does it take to be a contributor in Odoo?
It takes to be able to write code, actually. We have sometimes student that makes pull request, really beginner. We have experimented developer that find issue. They are using Odoo for a long time. There is no, apart being able to develop, there is no special skills needed to so there is no barrier. So if you have some doubt, don't hesitate to come back to me to discuss if you think that you have a question about that.
Perfect. To another question, how do I make a pull request to enterprise?
Oh, enterprise is a private repository, so only the partner have access to it. So if you don't have access to it, that you need that means that you have purchased a license a license for it, then you won't be able to contribute to it, unfortunately.
Okay, so do you think using Flake or Duck is the best practice?
We have a lot of discussion about that internally. We want to have to avoid useless commit. That means useless is just refactoring commit when you pass a tool to make the code looking better. And especially, we deal with the forward port all the time. So we make the change in 16, and we have a GitHub bot that will forward port your change in the most recent version. If at some point we use that kind of tool on the old code base, the issue is that it will break systematically all the forward port. We will have conflicts. So that's why we avoid automatic tooling that modify the old code base. Now, if you want to use Flake or some the JavaScript tooling to make your code better, you can, but only with the part of the code that you change. That way we don't introduce new, what we call useless diff that will make the review more difficult.
Okay. There's another question on localizations. Is it possible to make localizations and push them directly to Odoo?
You can make. We have already some localization. If you want to introduce a new one, I think because localization is a lot of work, I think the best is first to discuss with us to make sure that you don't start a process of working for 5 years on some code and then it will be rejected. But if you have a localization and you want it to be merged, then of course you can make a pull request and maybe discuss with the owner of the code. For example, if you make a localization in payroll, you can discuss with the developer that is in charge of payroll. Because obviously for new localization, there will not be ever some code owner activated. But you can, but make sure that discuss it with us before doing the whole process, depending of what are your expectations to contribute.
Sure. There is another question here on, they say there are guidelines on how to commit, but do you have till commit example? I think that was the second one at the top.
If you need some commit example, just go on GitHub and you will see all the commits of people that they most, especially when the email address is one internal developer, so @odoo.com, you will see that they follow the guidelines. So all our commits, the new one actually follow the guidelines. So if you don't know how to format it, just look at the examples, and if you do a pull request, don't hesitate to post a comment. I'm not sure that my comment message is okay. Just ask the question.
Sure. I think
we can still discuss and have some communication in the pull request. It's advised.
Sure. I think that's basically it for today's questions. In case of more, we can always interact further.
Okay.
Thank you.
Don't hesitate to ask if you have further things you think about. Thank you a lot. Have a nice end of Odoo experience.